Hey, folks, as you guys know, we are coming off the NBA All-Star game. And full transparency, this is being recorded before NBA All-Star weekend even takes place. So I don't know if there's going to be improvement in the skills challenge or the free-point contest or, how the dunk contest lands, or even if this Team Kenny and Team Shaq and Team Barkley and Team Candace Parker, this new sort of four-team three-round NBA All-Star game format is going to work. What I do know is NBA ratings this season are down 50%. And I don't think that has to do with just the fact that people are cutting cable or access to games or whatever may have you. I've been saying it really since before the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 that the NBA regular season has gotten extremely boring. It's gotten extremely repetitive. Every team basically tries to do the same thing. It's a 3-point shot or a layup. There's a lot of scoring. There's very little defense. Stars are taking off nights. The awards don't mean anything anymore because guys, excuse me, don't play that hard in the regular season. I mean, if you watch an NBA regular season game versus just one dribble of NBA postseason basketball, you can tell the difference. The intensity, the defense, the attention to detail, everything is risen up for 2 months in the NBA. And in the NBA, more people care about the trades and the moves than they do the actual basketball until we get to April. That is not how you continue to run a league, in my opinion. I think the NBA, they've talked a lot about strategic changes the league needs to make. So what I have done today is I have become Commissioner Adam Silver. Now, I'm doing this under some parameters because if you guys have been listening to me for years, you know my one major fix I would make if I was the NBA commissioner would be I would change the permanent schedule back to where it was during the 2020-2021 NBA season. That was coming off the NBA bubble where the season had ended in October. Excuse me. There was sort of a 2 month layoff, 6 week layoff, if you will, and the NBA was right back at it December 1st. There was a 72 game season. The regular season ended in May. The playoffs were carried from May until basically the end of June. The NBA finals then took place in July, and I absolutely loved it. The NBA dominated the entire summer. It rolled us right into an NFL training camp. The NBA, for a little bit there of a moment in time, sort of took back that number two spot over Major League Baseball. And I've always said about the NBA, and I know they got new media contracts coming in with the likes of Amazon and NBC, obviously. And I've always said that that the NBA competes way too much with the NFL early on in the season. The fact that they are going to do, the 7 day a week NBA primetime games when the season starts, I don't think it's going to work. I think the NFL is too massive of a sport. I don't get why the NBA decides to put a lot of games on Sundays during the football season. Like, I just think competing with the NFL is a bad idea. The NFL has now completely taken over the NBA from Christmas Day. And so, with that in mind, again, if I was the commissioner of the NBA, I would completely redo the structure. The NBA All-Star game would be in March, right before March Madness. I would include college basketball more in the All-Star festivities. I think there's so much more the NBA could do to take advantage. I would shorten games. I don't think we need an 82 game season. I don't even know if we need a 60 game season, a 52 game season like they had in the lockout season. I think would even suffice, considering the fact that again, guys don't play every night in the NBA. The average a guy plays in the NBA this now is about between 50 and 60 games a year. So if you spread out the schedule, guys will not miss as many games. And to me, you could pay the guy the same amount. I mean, pays the pay. Who cares? The money keeps going up. So, but with that in mind, again, working under these parameters, I do have fixes for the NBA that does take in the current regular season schedule, but I'm also going to be making some changes for the future as well as some rule changes. So these are my ways to get the NBA viewership back up, to get people more interested in the NBA. Before we start with this, I'd also like to know that, in my opinion, the NBA is still relying on a 40-year-old LeBron James, a 36 something year old Steph Curry, a 36 something year old Kevin Durant, even a Kawhi Leonard, who rarely plays these days for the Los Angeles Clippers. It does feel like the NBA, a little bit like Major League Baseball. The NBA used to be so good at marketing its stars. You know, it's MJ's, it's Larry's, it's Magic's, it's James Worthy's, it's Kareem's, it's Kobe's, even a Tim Duncan of the world, a Dirk Nowitzki, a Steve Nash, as I mentioned, Durant, LeBron, even Steph. And now it feels like the NBA, for whatever reason, is somewhat resistant to marketing these Lukas and these Tatums, and even a Jokic, a Giannis. It does feel like they're holding on to Pascori. I think the NBA does need to do a better job at marketing, and SGA even, and Anthony Edwards. Like last year's playoffs was supposed to be the transition playoffs, where Steph Curry was bounced out in the play-in tournament. LeBron was bounced out in the first round by a sweep. Kevin Durant was bounced out in the first round by a sweep. And so none of those three of those guys, who again, just a few years ago, you can make an argument for the top one, top two, top three players in the league. None of those guys even won a single playoff game. And we had the likes of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and we had Anthony Edwards, and we had Luka Doncic, and we had Tyrese Halliburton, and we had Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, obviously. It was supposed to be the new wave of marketing, the new wave in the NBA, and I feel like the NBA did not do as good enough job as they could have at marketing its stars. With that said, here we go. This is the way I would fix the NBA. Starting off with this suggestion has already been made by Adam Silver. I think it's a good one. Again, I think Adam Silver has given too much power to the players. I'm not the biggest fan of Commissioner Silver, but I do think he is open to change, and I do like this suggestion he made, which was let's have 10-minute quarters. Let's knock 8 minutes off the game. Let's create more urgency. Let's, in college basketball, right? Men's college basketball, it is two 20-minute halves. In women's college basketball, I believe it is 10-minute quarters. So they play 40 minutes. It knocks down the game a half an hour. So instead of you spending your night from 8 to 10:30 or even 8 to 11 sometimes watching an NBA game, or like Major League Baseball, do you spend some time watching it 8 to 10? Do you get that half hour back of time? I remember a Major League Baseball game, they'd start at 7, and here we are at 10:15, 10:20, the game's still going on. Well, now sometimes the game ends before 10 o'clock. And it really does feel like when that's the only sport on that you have to watch at night, and you got other plans, to do other family related matters, that half an hour really does matter. And again, I think it would create urgency. The other thing I'm going to steal from college basketball here is the five foul out rule. I sometimes I feel like six is way too much. I think five is a good number. It'd be very interesting to see if somebody has three fouls in the first half. Do you be more aggressive with them? Do you leave them in? Do you take them out? I think the foul strategy would change Certainly, if a guy gets two fouls early, the fact that you are now 40% on the way to fouling out as opposed to 33%, that 7% makes a huge difference. Especially when you're getting more and more up there, 3 out of 5, 60%, as opposed to 3 out of 6 is 50. So, excuse me. I do like the five foul out rule. I think the NBA should adopt it. I think it would help with strategy. There has been talks, excuse me. There have been talks of a 4 point line in the NBA, maybe a little square or something like that. I don't know if that should exist, but this is how I feel. I feel like that shots beyond half court. So obviously, if you're past half court, but you're still behind the 3 point line, which I think should change, or should not change, it should stay as is. But if you are beyond the half court line, I think those shots should be worth 4 points. I think it would change the end of game strategy. So instead of being down four and it being a two possession game, technically it's a one possession game. Do the teams decide to foul and not give up that half court? Is there going to be more pressing? Well, whatever. Do teams try to bring in, their best 3 point shooter, even if it's a big? Do you have them bring the ball up and just try to launch one? I think there would be a ton of strategy that goes into it. I'd be very interested to see. Again, I think end of games, like if you're down six with 30 seconds left, do you try to get a quick three? Do you just heave one up? Because again, it's such a low percentage shot, but you do feel like that, down four with 10 seconds left or whatever, maybe you feel like you have a miracle in you. Late game free throw situations would be fascinating as well, right? Do teams try to intentionally miss when they're up three and risk the fact that, they get the ball off the tee and they throw it up, and if it goes in, they lose? Or do you try to um just run clock and hope that they don't make that beyond half court shot? So I would find it fascinating. To me, again, I think you can try this out in an all-star game. You could try it out in preseason first, but shots beyond half court being worth 4 points to me would be an interesting experiment to try. Here's another one that I think would sort of stop the 30 seconds left. If you have a foul to give, take that foul, etc., sort of stopping the game. This is more of a strategy one. Um, I do not think that once we get into the final 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarter, so the final 2 minutes of every half, I am eliminating that you do not have a foul to give. So essentially, if you've only committed two fouls in the quarter, but we are at 2 minutes, it does not matter. The next foul you commit will be going to the free throw line. I think that will stop sort of the, hey, they have 20 seconds left, they have a foul to give. Let's just wrap it up, and then we have a play. I think it would be a lot more smarter, strategic defensively, because teams are not going to want to give up 3 points at the end of the half by a ticky-tack foul. And I think it will keep the clock moving because, again, I think teams will stop fouling in those situations. Here's an interesting one. I cannot stand at the end of basketball games where we're playing the free throw game. I don't like it. I don't like how teams switch out offense for defense and rebounding, and then you bring in guys. Here's one that I could use a little bit tweaking, and I'm open to, but you cannot sub at all in between free throws. Subs can only occur on timeouts before a free throw is taken, to before that first free throw is taken. A dead ball, going out of bounds, etc. I think again, strategy change. The other thing with free throws I have is When you go to the line, it is a 24-second running clock. So once a foul is called, you have 24 seconds. Like I said, you cannot sub in between free throws, but before the first free throw, you can sub in. So teams would have 24 seconds to sub in and out for that free throw shooter to get to the line and knock down his shot. I think it would, take away some game action again of them doing their routine, and we know Giannis's routine and all that. Um, I just want to see guys, a lot like the MLB pitch clock, step up to the free throw line, make your shot. We don't need to see you dribble the ball 12 times and do this. I think a shot clock on free throws is necessary. Here's not necessarily a change of pace one, but this is you can challenge any foul or non-foul call. So if you think something's a foul, if you think something wasn't called that should be called, if you think something was called that shouldn't be called, whatever. Basically, the whole replay, you can challenge anything. And I do think that the NBA needs to institute the NFL rule, which is basically if you win two straight challenges, you can get a third. You can challenge whatever you want. I think that needs to occur in excuse me, in all sports. I think we need to make everything reviewable just to get everything right. But my caveat is the replays for the challenge, they will last a maximum, again, a maximum of 30 seconds. We do not need to take a look at a replay 200 times and take 2 minutes to figure out the clock and the decision making and all that. You have 30 seconds to make the call. If it is not clear, if it is not obvious to change the ruling on the court, the call remains stood as stand. That will cut down, and again, us looking at 20 different replays or whatever. If it is inconclusive within 30 seconds, the call on the play will stand. We're also going to play European rules in terms of goaltending and in terms of being under the basket. So they don't have a 5 second violation. They don't have the goaltending rule. We're going to play a little more European. I like that style. I think the fact that the hand check a little bit in the NBA is coming back, especially internationally, they can be more physical. I like that a lot. I think the fact that we want more physicalness, I think it will allow you to be able to drive. I think there's going to be less freeze, more creativity. So my changes are more so about pace of play and about creating differential between, strategy and teams that have good 3 point shooters versus teams that do not have good 3 point shooters, and really trying to diversify the NBA because everybody is running the same offense, which is basically one dribble, one pass, and shoot a three. Here's my other changes for the NBA. Let's go to the NBA playoffs. We all know the NBA currently has 30 teams. We also know that the NBA, once they get this Amazon deal in and NBC and they re up with ESPN, they are going to expand the league to 32 teams. Las Vegas and Seattle have been the two teams heavily linked to join the NBA, which would mean they would both obviously go out west, which would mean one team would have to move out east. My best guess would be it would be the Minnesota Timberwolves. That creates 32 teams. That's 16 teams in the Eastern Conference, 16 teams in the Western Conference. I think the NBA then needs to adopt a NFL Major League Baseball division-esque strategy. The NBA already has divisions, but nobody knows about them. Nobody cares about them because they don't factor into playoff seeding at all. They really only factor into scheduling. That's the only reason why the NBA has a divisions is because you play everybody in your division 4 times. You play people in the opposite division 3 to 4 times, depending on who you play each year. That's the only reason why the NBA has divisions right now. And so My strategy here is we turn the NBA into the NFL, basically. We have eight divisions, four teams each. We have four divisions in the East: your Atlantic, Central, South, and North. Your West, you would have the Pacific, again, Pacific Atlantic Ocean. So, and then you'd have your Central, your South, and your North. Um, Four teams each, eight divisions, just like the NFL. In the postseason, division winners from each conference. So the East Atlantic, East Central, East South, East North. Division winners for those teams will be seeds 1 through 4. So, like the NFL, if the East Central has the Cavs, Pistons, the East North has the Bucks and the T Wolves, for example. Well, if the Bucks and the T Wolves have a better record than the Cavs, if both those teams do, but the Cavs win the Central, Minnesota would be the 5 seed, the Cavs would be the 2 seed because the Cavs won the division. For example, like we saw this year in the NFL where the Rams got the home game over the Vikings because the Rams won the NFC West, even though Minnesota had a better division record. I think getting rewarded for winning your division should be important and should earn you a home playoff game. And so division winners from each conference get seeds 1 through 4. The other three seeds are wild cards. So it is the same NFL format. The number one seed in each conference gets a bye. We have 2-7, 3-6, 4-5. There is no more in season tournament. I can't stand it. I think it's stupid. And there is no more play-in tournament for the playoffs. I think the play-in tournament is one of the dumbest things the NBA has ever created. Instead, what we're going to do, and by the way, for the record, this takes down NBA playoff teams. So early right now, 8 teams to make the playoffs, not including play-in tournament teams. That's 16 out of 30. I think we reduce it here. We get 14 teams out of 32 that make the playoffs. I don't like the fact that, you have more than half the teams in the league make the playoffs. A lot of these NBA playoff teams don't feel like legitimate playoff teams, especially those bottom conference playoff teams. As I've been saying over and over again, in the history of the National Basketball Association, there has been one number 4 seed, there's been one number 6 seed that has won the NBA Finals. The rest have come from a 1, 2, or 3 seed, which tells you we need to cut down on the playoff teams in the NBA. And my solution, basically, for the NBA, as they're like, oh, we don't get play-in tournament teams, what does that mean? Well, here you go. The first round of the NBA playoffs is not a best of 7. It is not a best of 5. It is a best of 3 every other night. And it will all take place, all like baseball, at the home team's ballpark. So if the playoffs start on April 15th, let's use an example from the Western Conference. Let's say the Western Conference matchup of 2-7 is, Rockets, Clippers. Let's just use that as an example. In that situation, the Rockets and Clippers would play April 15th in Houston. They would play April 17th in Houston. And then, if need be, they would play April 19th in Houston. So, in that scenario, we would have a best of 3 every other night. I'm not going to make anybody do back to back, but every other night will, again, create urgency. We don't have to wait 2, 3 days for these playoffs to occur. I also think the best of 3, right? You don't have 7 games to make adjustments. Not many NBA playoff series go 7 games. We maybe have 2 a year or 3 out of the what? We have 4 in the first round, so we have 8 in the first round total between the two conferences. Then we have 2 in the East, 2 in the West, so that's 4, that's 12. We have 15 series in the NBA playoffs total, and we get maybe what? 2 or 3 game sevens four or five game sixes. If you really look at it, we don't have a ton. And so I think shrinking the first round to a best of three. Well, again, these teams have got to come out, they got to be ready. And again, I just think the lesser games, the more urgency you're going to see right out of the gate. The word of the day today, folks, is urgency. That's what the NBA needs. The semifinals then would obviously be, the one seed against the four, the two versus the three, if every high seed advances, etc. We would reseed like the NFL, so if the seven seed were to knock off the two, they would take on the one, etc. But here's the change for me in the semifinals. Those series, instead of best of seven, they become best of five series. Like the MLB, AODS, NLDS. It's worked for baseball for years. Your 2-2-1 format. Again, it creates urgency, and for the home team, it really forces you to protect home court because if you lose one of those first two games, well, now you have to steal one on the road, or your season's over in game four, which feels like a really short series. The best of five you can do every other night as well. You don't need 2 days off in between a series. Again, this would help, I think, with ratings because it would tune more people in because it's a shorter series. Then the conference finals and the NBA finals can get a best of seven series. But with my changes to the quarterfinals being a best of three and the semifinals being a best of five every other night, this would set you up to where the NBA finals at the latest Game 7 would be Memorial Day night. Monday night, it's a holiday night. It's a big time night for the NBA. The NBA has always wanted, if there's a game 7 of the Eastern or Western Conference Finals to be on that Memorial Day night. Excuse me. Well, now, what about game 7 potentially of the NBA Finals? Which would mean the NBA will be over by June every single year. And I know what you're thinking. That's not great. But to me, it gives you more time for the NBA draft. Maybe you move the NBA draft up a couple weeks. Maybe you move free agency. Um, or you can keep that on July 1st. I just don't like that in the NBA. The NBA Finals ends in mid-June. We had the draft the week after, and then we have free agency a week after that. I would also, for the record, I would move free agency before the draft, and maybe you do the draft in July, when really the only thing on is baseball, and you have free agency taking place in June, mid June, 2 3 weeks after the season, the way the NFL does it. I think doing free agency first before the draft has always made sense to me, because then you can draft for need whatever you didn't get in free agency instead of overpaying in free agency for what you didn't get in the draft. That's always been my thought process on it. So I would flip the draft and free agency time periods. I would move the draft to July. I'd move free agency to again about middle to late June, maybe the 18th or 19th of June. Give these teams a couple weeks off after the finals. It just has always seemed weird to me that we have the finals, the draft, free agency, bam, 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 and it just doesn't feel like that we ever evaluate the NBA Finals as deeply as we could, the way we evaluate the Super Bowl, because we're off to the next thing right away. Now, here's the big one for the NBA. All-Star Weekend, which again, I don't know yet how All-Star Weekend's gonna go this year. I will say that it sounds like Adam Silver's talking to the players. It sounds like everybody wants to make this All-Star Weekend a success because if it is not, the NBA should, in my opinion, abolish All-Star Weekend. This is sort of their last chance to save the weekend. But if I was running NBA All-Star Weekend, this is how I would do it. The skills contest You have one NBA player, you have one WNBA player, and you have one celebrity. You do the layup, the free throw, the 3 point, where they're all at their own individual stations, and then whoever can knock down the half court contest. It's timed. They did this back in the day, NBA All Star Weekend with state themes, Team Texas, Team California, etc. I really like that part about the skills contest where you had the one NBA player, you had the one WNBA player, you had the one celebrity player, and the F court contest, the drama of it being timed and having a 4 team elimination style format. I really like that about the skills competition as opposed to all the passing and things they do with, the teams and the stations and bigs and smalls, and I think it got too complicated. I really think that's the way you get the WNBA also involved in NBA All Star Weekend. The 3 point contest. This is the other thing. And this goes along with the dunk contest and the NBA All Star game itself. There is a reason why I have never voted for MVP in any of the sports, whether it's Super Bowl, NBA Finals, etc. There is a reason why I have not voted any time in my life for an all star because I don't think fans should vote. I think fans are biased. Fans don't watch every player every single night unless you're an absolute nut. And we know this to be true because the NBA ratings are tanking again. Hence the point for this podcast today. Um, I think that NBA All Star voting should be based off coaches, media, and other NBA players and executives. That's who I think should determine the NBA All Star voting. So then, for the 3 point contest, this is how we do it. You're going to take the top 6 3 point shooters based off percentage, and that percentage has to be based off a number of shots. Obviously, you can't have a guy go 100%, but he only shot five threes. You'd have to figure out the threshold for it. If a guy plays 50 games and on average he takes 4 threes a game. Maybe you take the 200 3 point shots he takes. I don't know what the number would be, but I think that you would just take six, not eight. I think six is a good number. Again, reduce it a little bit. We don't need to be here all night with All Star Weekend. You take the top 6 3 point shooters in the All Star game based off the certain number of percentages that they make based off the shots taken. Um, Now, the dunk contest. Get rid of the G League. Get rid of whoever wants to do the dunk contest can be in the dunk contest. The dunk contest, the 3 point contest, the NBA All Star game itself. I think the skills competition, they all have to be based off you have to be an All Star. I don't think G Leaguers should be in it. Again, if you want to put WNBA players in it, I completely understand that point to get the WNBA involved. I would even be open to even putting in, potentially even a top college player in a dunk contest if he can dunk. But it can't be G Leaguers. And I think that they need to go back to the scores have to be 1 through 10. This 6 through 10 crap is crap. The worst dunk in the world does not deserve a six. I think 1 through 10 is a better hierarchy for the way to score a dunk. I've always loved to be a judge in the dunk contest because I would give all the dunks they do nowadays a freaking two instead of a 10. Whoop de doo, we did a windmill. That's an eight. It's a joke, folks. It's a joke. And finally, for the game itself, again, I don't know if this team Shaq, Kenny, Charles, whatever, is gonna work. I want to see it go back to East versus West. But here is the condition I have. The winning conference, whether it's East or West. I realize the players will not go for the fact that the winning conference gets home field in the NBA Finals the way they used to in Major League Baseball. I understand that. But for the winning conference, the players, they each get $2 million. There's an incentive there for guys to play hard for money. And the winning conference, those players get $2 million each. But not only that, but for the winning conference, every team in that conference gets an extra $2 million added into their budgets for the year. So that incentivizes the conference play again. So that's my solution to fix All Star Weekend. The voting needs to be done by media members, coaches, executives, current players, not even former players, current players, no fans involved at all. We need to let the All Stars be All Stars and not let G Leaguers penetrate on the weekend. We need to simplify the NBA playoffs so that games mean more. We don't need a best of seven in the first round or the second round, even. I think divisions need to matter more, which is why, with the expansion of Vegas and Seattle getting their team back, and then you bring one team to the Eastern Conference, we make divisions matter more, where those become the top four seeds. And then again, when it comes down to it, pace of play, right? The 10-minute quarters, the 5 foul out rule, not having a foul to give in the final 2 minutes, the fact that teams cannot substitute in and out between free throws, the fact that challenges must last a max of 30 seconds. I do like the experiment of the shots beyond half court being worth 4 points, and the fact that we're gonna play European rules in terms of the 5 second rule and the no goaltending and a little more physicality, if you will, a minor bit of a hand check. I think all of these changes will dramatically play the way the NBA looks at in the future. So let me know your thoughts on the state of the NBA. Well, let me know if you think I'm completely wrong. Let me know if you think I'm just being a hater. Let me know your ideas that you have to fix the NBA. You can either comment on YouTube or you can comment on our audio podcasting platforms where we are available on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you can listen to a podcast. Brandon's World is there. Like that clip from the Brandon's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon's World podcast right here on YouTube.